Welcome everybody to the Professional Career Transformations course, Strategic Career Building, How to Become a CEO. We have a very, very special guest today. Actually, my former boss, Mr. Dr. John Duff, former dean for the College of Computer and Information Technology at St. Petersburg College. Just a really great mentor of mine, someone that when my first actual professorship opportunity, Mr. Duff is the one that hired me on, and just a really a pleasure to have him with us today. Dr. Duff, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing really well. It's great to be with you, Patrick. Dr. H, as I call you. It's great to be here, and I appreciate what you're doing and the opportunity to chat with you again. It's good to see you again.
Oh, thank you so much, sir. If you could maybe introduce yourself, maybe just kind of discuss, what your current title currently is, or what the former title was, just a little bit about your background, maybe where you're from, just a little bit for the audience, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I grew up in Pittsburgh, actually, and went to a small liberal arts college. Actually went to college to play baseball and was a psychology major of all things, but took some programming courses, really enjoyed it. Ended up not being drafted, so I went on to graduate school and went into an MBA program. And it was during that program that I had an opportunity as an assistant to teach some classes and got a real love of it. But one of my department chair told me, he wanted me to go right into a PhD program. And I told him I felt like I needed some real experience. And so he told me, I always remember him, he told me, well, you'd need 10 years of experience for it to be worth anything. Well, that's essentially what I did. I got a job working for AT&T. I'm old enough that was pre-divestiture. So I was hired by AT&T, and then AT&T was split up, and I ended up at Ameritech and started in marketing. Actually, that was my entry into the company. Wasn't where I wanted to be, but it was a way to start start the career. And I spent 2 years in marketing, and then was able to transition over to information technology, and spent about 17 years in information technology with AT&T and Ameritech. Moving up from a programmer analyst job up to my final position, it was called site architect. We had an e-commerce business unit, and we had developed a product called Civic Link, which was very cool at the time, but it was just pre-internet. So we were putting government records online so that folks didn't have to go down to a government office and request records. We could produce them for them online. But it was, as I said, pre-internet. So we had, they had to dial up, and now it's a whole lot easier. But that was a very interesting experience. Really enjoyed it, and we were using a lot of new technology at the time. In fact, we were one of the first to use digital signaturing. And I was working on a project in the Los Angeles County Superior Court system. We had a great tagline. It was "Get online, not in line." And we developed an electronic filing system so that attorneys could file documents into the court system. Great experience, but while I was doing that, I wanted to get back to teaching ultimately. And so I started into a PhD program at Kent State University, and they allowed me to start part-time. And the goal was always to stop out, finish the degree, and then get a position. But as I continued in the career was so exciting and fun, and I was learning a lot of new things, and it became a doable thing to go through the doctoral program. They certainly wanted me to be a full-time scholar, but I was able to complete the program while building my professional career. And when I finished and got my PhD, I just decided that I had to be a good steward of my degree. I didn't really need it with what I was doing. Plus, I was living in Ohio, and my family was in Ohio. My kids were in Ohio, and I was working a lot in Los Angeles. And so I needed to do something that would bring better balance back to our lives. So I started looking around for positions, found a job at Eckerd College
Mhm.
on a Department of Defense grant for a program called the Electronic Commerce Resource Center program. And so we moved down to Florida in 1997. I've been here ever since. And I spent 20 plus years at Eckerd College. And at one point down there, I got tapped on the shoulder and was told I needed to, they needed me to become essentially their equivalent of a CIO. And so I did that for my last 10 years at Eckerd. And then um, at, effectively retired from Eckerd because I wanted to get out of the operations side and get back to the academic side of the house and full time into teaching. And that's when I made the jump over to SPC. They brought me in as an academic chair, where my focus was primarily on teaching. And then again, I got tapped on the shoulder one day and said, hey, how would you like to step in and be the acting dean of the College of Computer and Information Technology? So I told them yes, and then that became a permanent thing. A little bit later, they tapped me on the shoulder and said, we'd like you to be the acting dean of the College of Business as well as the dean of the College of Computer and Information Technology. So I've been very fortunate that I've really only worked for 3 organizations, and I've had an opportunity in them to make an career advancements in each of those organizations. And that's a rare thing, especially these days, I think, where that can happen. Part of that was starting my career in a large organization and taking advantage of all that it had to offer. But it gave me a good balance between the professional side of information technology and information systems and the academic side, and I think prepared me well to be in an academic position where, especially at a place like St. Petersburg College, where our program is as you know, Dr. Orton, is applied in nature. We teach theory certainly, but we want students to come out with skill sets so that they can become productive quickly. I remember very clearly when I was with AT&T and moving from marketing into information technology. They sent us through something that they were famous for. It was called PBT, Programmer Basic Training, essentially a boot camp, 16-week boot camp to learn how to program in COBOL, by the way. But so I went through that program, and I remember my boss telling me that I thought I knew everything when I finished. Only 60% of my class passed it. So I thought, I'm doing really well. I always remember my boss telling me, it's going to be 18 months before you can work on your own as a developer here.
Wow.
And I've always had that in my mind, because he was almost right. I'd like to think it didn't take quite that long before I could function on my own. I knew what to do. I knew how to get jobs submitted. I knew how to build jobs. I knew how to, the programming part was easy. It was the rest of the structure that was challenging, and just learning the processes and the rhythm of the company. But at SPC, I've always kept that in mind, that our goal is for students to hit the ground, that maybe not always running, but at least keeping pace so that they can get plugged in, because the concepts are very important. The keystrokes are going to change over time, but we want our students to have some skills that they can apply immediately. So I've been talking a lot here, but that's kind of been my journey to this point.
No, and absolutely. I really think that SPC has a really, almost a practitioner-based, degree program,
Yeah.
to where these are real skills that you're going to apply as soon as you get into the workforce. And that's one of the things I admire about SPC's curriculum, is that it's really, really setting up some of the young people to move, like, especially the cybersecurity program that I'm teaching in, it really move right into the workplace and have almost hands-on experience just through the text and through the practical exercises, things like that. I mean, it's a very well put together program. And I think it's just, you really can't beat the quality of education you get at St. Pete College. I mean, it's really second to none in the country, in my opinion.
Well, I've got it. confess that I was pleasantly surprised when I moved from a small private liberal arts college to St. Petersburg College. I didn't know as much about it as I probably should have, but I was very impressed with the quality of instruction and the quality of students, but also with just the mission of the place and how transformative education can be for students. And I've seen, student after student who just wasn't sure they were going to be able to make it, who discovered that they had a skill set or could develop a skill set that could be extremely useful, that they would have opportunities to apply what they learned quickly. So yeah, I always used to say we're not computer scientists in our program. We're applied uh, technologists. We want students to be solving problems that the business or the organization has that technology can address. Um, and I think they do that very well. I think the program is strong and continues to grow. As you know, we developed a bachelor's degree program in cybersecurity while I was there. I got a grant from the Federal Department of Education to do that. This is the first new bachelor's degree program at St. Pete College in 10 years. I was shocked to hear that was the deal. So that's the other piece that was really fun about the program, is that we could identify a need and address it. Um, and be we were also very tightly coupled with the professional community,
Mhm.
and had a strong advisory board, can continue to have a strong advisory board and other professional organizations that would help us understand what skill sets our students needed. So we were always, had tried to keep our finger on the pulse, because um, that's not always the case with the academic world,
Mhm.
that we don't always necessarily have our finger on the pulse of what's happening in the marketplace. But I think the SPC does a pretty good job of keeping uh, current and engaged with the professional community.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things I definitely wanted to touch on was, what's your view on the current industry in regards to, obviously, we work in the CCIT department, and obviously we're preparing students, obviously, and I like the fact that SPC has a really good workforce program. That it almost seems like students are, purposely and strategically building skills, so that way when they get their bachelor's degree, then not only have the degree, but they almost have acquired certain skills in order to, get out and almost start right into their career. I mean, what's your thoughts on the industry today in regards to information system technology, in regards to, getting positions in cybersecurity, as far as like the health of the workplace market, as far as, network administration, system administration, cloud architecture, just wanted maybe some of your general thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just read, I think it was in the New York Times or the Washington Post, can't remember which, had an article on how two articles I've read recently. One was on how businesses are questioning whether degrees are necessary. And
Mhm.
so, our certifications and skill sets, the currency of the realm now. So, as an educator,
Mhm.
I think that's one we have to really consider. Is that really where the business, where the world is going? And then another piece was on how uh, just the job market may be getting a little bit tighter for those in technology. Although that article, as I think back on it, was more addressing those who went to schools preparing for careers at some of the large Silicon Valley companies like Meta, Facebook, Google, and others and Amazon, who are laying people off in technology. There's still plenty of jobs, several 100,000 across the country in information technology. So I think the way we structured the program at SPC is that students could earn a certificate from the college,
Mhm.
but also an associate's degree and then a bachelor's degree. But along the way, we build in industry certifications, so they come out with multiple credentials, our certificate, our degree, plus industry certificates as well. and we try to provide support for them, and try to encourage students to recognize how valuable those things are. Um, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're an expert, but it does demonstrate that you are able to learn a skill, and under some pressure to demonstrate that you have a basic skill set. And it's certainly then your likelihood of success is in finding a job, but then being successful at the job and productive soon are greater. So I think, you know, as an educator, um, I really think degrees are important. As one who went, you know, who matured in life from the when I think back to what I was like as a freshman when I went away to college and what I came out as a senior, wow, just a totally different person. So that experience was valuable to me. I was fortunate to be able to have that experience, and so I still believe pretty strongly that an education needs to broaden a person's horizons. So that's why I do like the fact that in a degree program, students are required to take courses in multiple disciplines, and they do have some general education requirements. We want our students to be able to be effective communicators, written and oral communicators, and so those other courses supplement the degree. So, you know, to me, the degree is important for those reasons, that they prepare students for maybe longer term success and create the critical develop or help develop the critical thinking skills and communication skills that supplement the technical side of the education. So, you know, we want to roll-rounded student, because we want them to get their first job, but then we want students to be successful throughout their career. And I think the degree plus is the way I'd put it, to me, is the best route to go. And so when I see articles in mainstream newspapers suggesting that, well, maybe we don't need a degree, I understand where that's coming from. But long term, I think the degree that students develop skills and in the process of earning the degree. It's character building for students to have to take a writing course. It's character building for students to have to take a speech course. It's character building for students to have to take an American government course, for instance. And those are not always the favorite courses of our students in information technology.
You know, and I would even double down on that. You know, and it's funny, I actually have a lesson kind of justifying the rationale for getting a degree. You know, I kind of say, you know, hey, you've got pretty much a 20 to 30 year career, you know, that you got, and you want to optimally promote through that career. Are you better off with, you know, a high return on investment degree, or are you better off without it? I mean, you know, you think about, you know, even you think about like Department of Defense contracting, you know, different you need to meet certain labor category requirements, and a lot of times it's checking off that block for a degree, and I think that, you know, I think it's almost a little bit anecdotal to just completely think that, oh, you know, Mark Zuckerberg or some of these other guys, didn't have a degree. You know, well, guess what? I didn't invent Microsoft or Facebook, you know, or Apple. You know, I need my degree if I'm going to be out in the world. You know, you think about, you know, over your 20-year career lifetime, you know, how many times have I been in an interview where, hey, sorry, you don't have a degree, we can't pay you. You know, sorry, you don't have that certification, we can't. You know, it seems like, you know, if you don't meet those labor category requirements, they're going to limit your, you know, I don't think I know a CEO today. Now, maybe there are some people that start their own organizations, but you tell me a Fortune 500 CEO that doesn't at least have a bachelor's degree. You know, I can't name one. So I think that, you know, I think that a degree, obviously I think a lot of people got in trouble where they didn't calculate the return on investment. You know, they spent $250,000 on a degree that was going to earn them 20 grand. Okay, of course, that's probably not a good deal. But if you have a good high return on investment degree and you pay junior college prices, you know, I think that is, you know, not to mention the network that you build, when you go to university with the workforce program, with other student alumni, the professorships. I mean, just the mentorships you get to actually place you around to other, within other organizations. I mean, the experience is invaluable. I think people will realize that, but right now it's just the trend of, oh, get one certification, I'm good for 20 years. And I mean, certifications are new every 3 years. It doesn't play out that way. But
Yeah, exactly. Those are all great points. We're as I said earlier, my mindset is we're preparing for students for long-term success in a career, but also, it has to be the degree plus. The degree
right.
has to add value. And this coming from a guy who got a degree in psychology, but that just gave me an opportunity to play baseball at that age. But I recognized where I was and that I had to equip myself. The other thing I'd say is that I also like to think too that we're preparing students for leadership roles, and
Right.
there's a I've always thought there's a difference between a manager and a leader, and a leader can come in and set an agenda, cast a vision, move and motivate folks, and move an organization forward. Where a manager is a little bit more concerned with things like budget and all these important things. But I like to think, and it's sort of self-serving as an educator to say that I think a degree helps position folks a little bit better for that kind of leadership, potentially leadership positions, because they can see the problem in context.
Mhm.
They can see the challenges in a broader context. It's not just about we're going to fix this thing right here, right now. We're not, you can get kind of in a fire drill kind of mentality in our world of IT, where we're always putting out fires, but you need to move beyond that. Why are the fires occurring? What's the underlying problem that we might be able to address, that we maybe we could automate password resets. Maybe they don't have to call us every time, that kind of thing. Just step back and then save the organization time and money.
Yeah, absolutely. One I think I've noticed in industry is that the smartest person in the building often is not the CEO. I mean, you can be an excellent engineer and be good in one individual function, but that doesn't mean you're going to be the person that's running the organization. You almost need that diversification of knowledge in regards to finance, human resources, business development. That the person with the best people skills is the one that actually is running the company. So I think that by getting your bachelor's degree and having to go through all those different courses to kind of become a well-rounded individual, that aids you in kind of your knowledge acquisition power. Essentially, you can learn more because you've kind of touched on a little bit of everything, and now you have the ability to kind of manage. You don't just manage. If you're an engineer and you're going to be a CEO, you're not going to just manage engineers. You're going to manage the finance department, the business development department, and have to know a little bit about everything. And I think that's the power of being well-rounded with a degree. Like you said, and then to complement the degree, you get that project management certification, that Cisco certified network certification, things like that. And then you get the experience to go with it. And then that combination makes you just pretty much an unstoppable force. But without that foundational degree to really give you that broad scope, you're really going to be limited in your functional career path. You can go as high as that technical ability will take you, but then when it comes to managing people, you're going to have a big, you can have a delta there, and that's going to be something you need to improve on eventually.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's a rare person that can kind of bridge the gap between a highly technical group and the senior leadership. And we need to develop people who can stand in that gap and communicate with both groups effectively. And that's a rare person. I do think it's helpful to have a broader education to do that. But uh, 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 I've been surprised that those people are somewhat few and far between who really have that kind of skill set. But I think that's what folks need to advance in their career.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of touched on one thing. I know we talked about obviously some of the benefits of getting a degree and move, especially in the CCIT department. There's just endless opportunities globally for anybody that comes out with a cybersecurity degree, a bachelor's in information technology, computer science. If you were to identify some of the shortcomings, I think we did discuss some of the the almost like the methodology that you don't need a degree, just go get one cert and you should be able to be good for the rest of your career. But any other like shortcomings in, I don't want to say the world of education or that transition, what
Yeah.
would be some of the shortcomings you would say? Do you think, education, do we adapt fast enough? Like knowledge commerce, right? When a new piece of information comes out, they publish it the next day. But obviously in education, you need the approvals in order to be able to pass it on to the students to make sure everything
Yeah.
is correct and peer reviewed. Do you think speed to market is an issue, or what would you say some of the shortcomings or things we can improve upon?
Yeah, Patrick, that's a huge issue, and one that, coming from an industry background and then stepping into higher education was a culture shock for me, because the cycle times to make important decisions in higher education are still way too long. We talked about that bachelor's degree in cybersecurity that took 18 months to get approved and developed. So
Wow.
18 months, that's way too long in the world that we live in, right? So that is still an ongoing frustration. That I used to tell vendors sometimes, yeah, I want to do this, but I'm going to have to run it through the president, and I don't know how decisions are made sometimes. So be patient with this, because and what I learned was you needed to be ready because often you had to take problems presented opportunities for us, and so you don't want to be there to say, I told you so. You want to say, well, here's the solution. Having anticipated it, and it just took a while for maybe some senior folks to understand where you were really trying to go. But that aside, I think one of the challenges in higher education is really, this movement that SPC and our program in CCIT embraced was online education.
Mm,
The bar is being moved higher and higher in terms of the quality of coursework. I mean, you've probably done courses on Udemy. You're developing courses.
right.
Gone through the University of Phoenix. You know what high quality online education is. I've told folks our competition in the future is not other colleges necessarily. The competition are the Udemys of the world, or those who are developing some really high-end courses. Again, we get back to this issue of, well, what's the credential at the end of the day? But be that as it may, the quality of what's being delivered is astounding to me, and I'd get concerned sometimes that some of my fellow educators aren't realizing that. But I've taken courses for $10 that are outstanding. 70 videos. I mean, that's how I earned my AWS certification. So I've taken courses on Udemy. They were outstanding and cost me next to nothing. So SPC is a good value, but $10 is $10, and it prepared me well. So I think that's a challenge for us, trying to understand how to be most effective in an online world, and whether we need to partner with organizations, or certainly there's got to be some investment in keeping current with best practice in that world, because it's moving fast. And that was one of my concerns, that I wasn't sure we could move fast enough. That, on top of the fact that higher education it's a collegial environment. And that also was one of the things that surprised me, that lots of people want to be involved in every decision, even if it doesn't affect them. And so I had to learn in my prior role, even though we were doing something that really didn't affect the faculty, they needed to feel like they were involved in the decision, or at least were consulted. So that made life easier to just let folks participate in some way in the decision. But again, it just adds cycle time. So that was a little bit of a frustration.
Yeah, and I think you really hit on something important too, is that, maybe the colleges need to start thinking about the business case. You figure, I mean, I think I read something that was, there's 3 billion people that use YouTube, and of those 3 billion, 70% report being online. So if I can get, even though, you create an online product, you don't have the building rental fee that you have to pay for. It's basically just a $200 a month fee to host videos online on some back-end server. and I can charge $10 for it. Maybe it costs me $50,000 to create something, but because there's so many users around the world that can have access to that product, you can charge a low dollar value and just sell more of the product because it's just, you know, a continuous session. Just log on and get access to the course. And maybe that's maybe something that St. Pete College can kind of start thinking about, like, how do we compete with that business model essentially of providing the education?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think, you know, once we're digitized, we can reach anybody, and that there are some territorial issues with the state college systems. So,
Right, of
but
course.
you know, I read, I think it was Arizona State had a goal to have like 1 million students around the world, like 1 million students. You know, that's a big vision. I don't know how many they have, but they've become quite a leader in online education. So I
Absolutely.
think, you know, that is one of the things that schools like SPC just need to get their head around. That, you know, and we don't need, and it's clear, and I think they recognize that, and other schools are, that we don't need the physical plant that we've had in the past. That there's always a case to be made for face-to-face learning, and we always need to provide that. There are some students who, at least, you know, they've, especially at a college like SPC, they need a lot of attention early in their careers, and then they learn how to learn. And so we'll always have that need, um, but we don't need all these buildings. Um, the physical plant is not as necessary, and schools are trying to consolidate campuses. It's not just SPC, but others as well. Um, as we see that, you know, does a faculty member have to be in the office all day long if they're teaching online courses? Um, you know, the SPC's wrestled with a lot of that, and it's a real cultural shift for some. And I think, you know, it was one of the artifacts that came out of the you know, the dealing just worldwide with COVID, that a lot of faculty who would have never considered teaching online kind of woke up and became aware of, woke up's not the right word, the right phrase to use. It just, they became more aware of what could be done online, and some really embraced it and recognized that there's a lot of value in this. It's not easy. It requires, you know, it requires sometimes a lot more preparation than just showing up in a classroom. Uh, and so, you know, a lot of work goes in on the front end. But I think a lot of faculty, you know, kind of, it was a, you know, kind of a blinding BGO, blinding glimpse of the obvious, that, hey, this can work, and this meets the needs of a lot of students. I, I've said many times, I really wish when I was going through my PhD program that I could have done some online classes, but I'm old enough that you know, I had to trudge through the snow uphill both ways, kind of thing, you know, to get to class. But uh, uh, yeah, that's an issue that you know, schools are going to continue to wrestle with a bit. But it's an
Absolutely.
opportunity, and I think, just you said, the business case, it's there. It's it's just a hard thing for some educators to let go of, and to really recognize that, you know, that's what, how students want to be educated.
Absolutely. You know, if you could go back and talk to a 18-year-old Dr. Duff or a 23-year-old Dr. Duff, you know, what advice would you give that young individual in regards to, hey, get this degree, while you're getting this degree, get these certifications. When you come out of college, look to land this kind of an internship, or get this type of experience to kind of propel your career. You know, maybe you only stay in your career, maybe in your job only 2 to 3 years at a time, because maybe you need to acquire the different skill sets in order to become like a leader one day. And it's good to kind of be a little bit multifaceted, stay with one company for a certain amount of time, but kind of, you know, progress through the ranks. Like, what advice would you give someone in regards to education, certification, experience, in regards to that college grad coming out and looking into the world and making those strategic decisions?
Yeah, great question, Patrick. I think, the key thing is to take advantage of the opportunities that you have while you are a student. Take advantage of the opportunities that schools provide for you. At SBC, you can sit for certification exams at no cost. You're not
Wow.
going to have that opportunity again. It's built into the course. So take advantage of those opportunities, but then also look outside the classroom and take advantage of opportunities to network with leaders in the business that you're aspiring to be part of, in that field. Take advantage of those opportunities. Don't be shy about asking questions and attending events. Get engaged in the extracurricular activities that are available. That they'll just give you a chance to network with people, maybe even outside of your discipline, but will let you build leadership skills, whether it's in student government or in athletics or in some other area. Just take advantage of those opportunities that are there, and try different things, to see if you will, if you like them, and don't at all be afraid of, keep your ultimate goal in mind, but you may have to you may have to go in the side door to get where you really want to be. I had to start in marketing. I'm more happy being a heads down programmer, and have minimal human interaction during the day. I'm an introvert, but um, that marketing position, a couple years in that position, was very helpful for me to develop professionally and to be able to deal with a customer. So, and deal with complaints, deal with happy and unhappy customers. You learn a lot. You grow up fast in those situations. And so, I think that's the key. Take advantage of the opportunities that are available to you while you're building a degree, and try different things. And it may be you're not going to be a network engineer, but you need to know networking. So dig into it. Earn a certification in networking. Uh, you may not want to be a programmer, but it will be very helpful for you to understand a little bit about programming and coding. So be sure that you're not only getting these gen ed requirements, but you're also developing a solid technical base, and don't be as narrow as building into one discipline. There are multiple disciplines within technology. Sample all of those, but take advantage of the opportunities. And then, this is a really simple thing, and it's what I tell students, younger students, is show up. You know,
Mhm.
um, sounds really simple. Sounds inane almost, but you'd be amazed at how important that is in a career. Is be the person that can be counted on. And um, like in baseball, nothing happens till you put the ball in play, right? You've
Right.
got to be in play. You've got to be there, and um, opportunities may present themselves simply because you are there and dependable, and folks will figure that out sooner than you can believe, that you're a person that can be counted on. And you can develop that as you're building your education as well, by being involved in all these other things. But you'll stand out just by being dependable and being present.
Absolutely. And it's funny. I was actually the final question was, and you just gave us some wonderful final thoughts and comments. But if you could give the audience any final thoughts, comments, words of wisdom, maybe ethos to live by, or just general kind of ideas, what would they be, sir?
Well, yeah, I think that was probably my go-to advice. But the other thing that it took me a long time to learn, and I hope it's relevant here, is that people are very important, and it's really important to listen. Um, uh, it was amazing to me when I'd be in my office, engaged in some task, writing an email, whatever, and someone would come to my office. It was hard for me to learn to stop doing this other thing and give them my full attention.
Mm.
They were there for a reason. And I'll tell you, Patrick, the kind of things that ended up surfacing there would be maybe a business problem that we needed to address, but then other things would come out, and it's just a simple matter of listening and being available and letting them tell you what's really going on, and it helps tremendously. But I had to learn that. It's still a bit hard for me, but it's a very important thing that when someone's in front of you, stop what you're doing, give them your full attention, and listen to them. And the other thing I'd share with technical folks is when you're in a briefing or a presentation and someone's sharing some new technology, don't be afraid to ask questions. Um, I sat through many briefings in my time where we'd all come out of the briefing and someone would say, "Well, did you understand what they were talking about?" Oh, heck no! I had no idea. But you don't, I didn't want to demonstrate that I was the only. I just assumed everybody in the else in the room understood what was going on. Ask questions. Don't be afraid. Don't leave without understanding what the key points of what was being shared with you. So maybe those are two thoughts that were things that I had to learn and I had to wrestle with. But I think um, don't underestimate paying attention and listening to people who work for you, who work with you, and give them their full attention. When I first came to Florida and was part of this thing called the Department of Defense's Electronic Commerce Resource Center program. Congressman Bill Young, I don't know if you remember him, he's since passed on, but he came and visited the place. And he came through and did a little tour. And when he talked to me, it was like the world stopped. There was nothing more important in his life than to know how I was doing that day and what I did. And I thought, wow, this guy is really good. He's a politician, so of course he was good. But um, he was very good, and I walked away from that thinking that's really how we should be dealing with people, understanding where they're coming from, what they're saying, and listening to, and not have my own agenda rattling around in my mind, be able to pause that and focus.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Duff. I mean, this was a rare, in-depth insight from, a well-distinguished, historic career as a dean and all the other things you've done throughout your career. And I know that, any of the students that get an opportunity to watch this video are going to be, it's the breadth of knowledge that you just passed along is going to be. I can't even imagine being 23 years old and being able to hear some of this guidance and this words of wisdom. I mean, it's going to be so valuable. And I just thank you for your time and appreciate you stopping by and having this discussion. Thank you so much, sir.
Absolutely. Thanks for asking me. Always a pleasure to chat with you, Patrick. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, sir. And we are signing out.